Recently, I uploaded to my YouTube channel a 3-part story called Drog. Drog, a horror noir. The story tells of a young man named Gordon Rowe who murders by drowning after beating him over the head with a bicycle pump. A street person named Albert or Ab Jenkins. But Ab comes back from his watery grave. I think it's one of the best things I've done on YouTube, and I sat up late at my computer exploring the idea of a 4th chapter, or a sequel, or a prequel to the story. But I couldn't come up with anything. I'd gone dry. The story was dead in the water. And since all I could manage was bad puns, I finished the rest of my rum, Kraken Dark, and decided to call it a day. Or night. Or morning, seeing it was 2:07 a.m. Still, I was really pleased with the characters I'd created. Although some would accuse me of venting a lot of personal venom in my creation of Ab Jenkins, venting a lot of venom on Ab. No, I didn't like him, and I was glad Rowe killed him, as Ab represented every moronic jerk I had the misfortune of knowing in the blue-collar milieu in which I had grown up. As for Rowe, he was just a misguided but sensitive young man. Like me, when I was a callow youth. But now I was a tired and slightly drunk old man, so off to bed. I live alone, so I'm used to the whole hearing strange noises thing while lying in bed thing, the should I get up and investigate thing, and it usually doesn't bother me. On the first night in my current house, I was treated to the whole spectrum of poltergeist behavior. Knocking, footsteps, whispers, escalating upwards to maniacal laughter, even the sounds of a marching band, until I'd finally had enough and hollered, "Would yous ghosts kindly please shut up?" Although I think it was more like, would you ghosts kindly please bugger off?" And they did. Dead silence. And they haven't been back. But I digress. Tonight I'd gotten in bed, found a good spot, shut my eyes, and drip, drip, drip. From somewhere in the house came the sound of a dripping tap. At first I tried to ignore it and kept my eyes shut. But after a while, I found myself actually listening for it, and I had begun to worry. What if there was a leak somewhere, and I woke up to a mess? So I got up and waddled, first to the bathroom and then to the kitchen to check on the taps, and neither was dripping, so I wondered if there might be a leaky pipe in the basement. And, grabbing a flashlight, I went down and went through the whole cellar, but the pipes were fine. I came back upstairs, completely puzzled, and found the dripping had stopped. What the hell, I thought. I'll take another look. But in the morning. But I no sooner lay my weary head on my pillow when drip, 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 drip. But now I was mad, and remembering what had worked so well with my poltergeist infestation, I bawled out, "Hey, you drips! Stop dripping!" And they stopped. Dead. If only my orders worked on everyday people as well as they did on supernatural entities. I was soon asleep and dreamed. and dreamed I was prowling the dark streets of my old hometown, prowling the streets leading to the pier. I tried to stop, to turn around, but found I couldn't. Something was compelling me to return to the scene of the old crime, where Roe murdered Ab back in 1974. What was it they always said? The murderer always returns to the scene of his crime? But I was no murderer, only a writer. I wrote about a killing, sure, but I never killed anyone, never laid a hand on anyone. I was positively running now, over the bridge and past the Centennial Library, and across Lakeshore Road and down Navy Street, and then the park, and then I was running down the pier, slipping and sliding on the wet concrete, running and running, towards the lighthouse, to the lighthouse, to the lighthouse. I finally halted at the very end of the pier and found myself staring out towards the dark, heaving water. 100 yards out, a human figure broke the surface of the water, hands raised in rage and agony. Jenkins? Ab Jenkins? And then I saw that it was Jenkins, and that he held in his right hand, raised high, an incongruous object, a bicycle pump, a blood-stained metal bicycle pump. And as I watched, in palpitating horror, the figure rose to the surface of the water and began to shamble towards me, waving the bike pump like a club and screeching in a distorted, high-pitched voice, "Frat boy, you die! Frat boy, you die! You die! Die!" I tried to back away and came up against the red concrete base of the lighthouse. Jenkins appeared to be floating instead of his usual limping, and he stepped directly onto the pier. Wet rat tails framed his corpse face, and I was appalled to see his head and shoulders were draped with seaweed. Jenkins raised the bicycle pump, which dripped thick red blood, opened his sour mouth, which emitted a mingled stench of wine, puke, and death, and croaked, "I'm gonna lay a beating on yous, frat boy. I'm gonna lay a beating on yous," and he brought down the bike pump, sprayed me with gore. And I shrieked and sat up in bed. It took a few minutes for my heart rate to go back down, and when it got back to normal, I found I was soaking wet, that the bed was soaking wet. I had broken into a cold sweat, sure, but not enough to soak the sheets, soak through the mattress. Had I pissed myself in my terror? As I staggered to my feet, I heard something, or someone, moving about in the living room. And then I smelled the funky, fishy tang I immediately recognized from my youth as the pungent smell of Lake Ontario. I stumbled down the hallway calling, "Who's there?" and hit the light switch. He was standing in the middle of the living room, short, bow-legged, wearing a cracked and stained black leather jacket. Wet rat tails framed his corpse face, and I was appalled to see his head and shoulders were draped with seaweed. In his right hand he held an incongruous object, a blood-stained metal bicycle pump. Ab? Ab Jenkins? "I'm gonna lay a beating on yous, frat boy. I'm gonna lay a beating on yous." I could smell the putrid sour breath all the way across the room. But you're not real. You're a fictional character. You don't exist. You don't really exist." "I don't exist, eh? I don't exist, but I'm here, ain't I? Ain't I? And you're gonna die! 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 And he brought down the bike pump, spraying me with gore. When I returned to consciousness, I felt wet. I felt something was running down my face, and I'll be damned, but I can hear off in the distance a dripping, a dripping sound. Dripping. I'm wet, but it doesn't feel like water. It's sticky, and it has an iron taste. Blood? It's my blood. It's my blood, and I'm bleeding out. Ab's got his revenge, but he doesn't exist. He doesn't exist. Who says I don't write killer fiction? Eh? WSJ here. I realized the inspiration for this yarn was a story by the great English writer L.P. Hartley called W.S. I first read it in a Scholastic paperback of ghost stories when I was in grade 8, and the other guys gave me grief over it, as my initials are W.S. I've left a link in the description if you want to check out the original story. Please share, comment. I love comments and try to respond when I can. And drop a like and consider subscribing for more weird tales, night floaters, and ghost stories of a librarian. And, of course, drogs. What's a drog? Drowned men and women who come out of the deeps to prey on the living. And of course, stay hungry.